Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to bring your videos to life and tell your story. So let's dive right in and learn how to create these cute little doodles. But before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell. First off, we're going to create a composition. I've set it up like this. I name it render. The size is 1920 by 1080 and the frame rate is 25 because my footage has a frame rate of 25 as well, and the duration is 5 seconds. So this is the video we're going to work on. I'm going to import it into the composition, or you can just drag and drop your footage onto the composition option to create a composition from it. Alright, so this is the video I made using AI, and the camera zooms out. We want to attach our design to the orange so that when the camera zooms out, our design moves with the orange. It should have some animation and tell a fun little story. Now to make the face, it's best to start by designing the face itself. So I'll create a new comp and set the size to 1080 by 1080 for now. And name it face. I'll leave the rest of the settings as they are and hit OK. The first thing I want to design are the eyes, so I'll start by making the background of the comp gray. Now let's start with the eyes. First I'll select the ellipse tool, set the color to white and draw a circle. I'll name it I1. While the layer is selected, I'll draw another smaller circle for the pupil. And make it black. Also, if you want the tearful and emotional look to show better in the eyes, I can add a few small white circles as well. I'll group all the layers related to the pupil with Ctrl G and name it. Now to create the eyelids, I'll duplicate the layer and name it eyelid. Then I'll delete this layer and turn the ellipse shape into a bezier path since I want to animate it. I duplicate the ellipse again, leave the first one alone for now, and turn off its visibility. For the top eyelid, I change its path to make the color a little, and adjust the path to create the upper eyelid. I do the same for that part so I can have a full half circle. I can also move the handle of the center point a bit to get a nicer curve. I activate the first ellipse and change its color. I temporarily hide the top shape, and for the lower eyelid, I drag this point downward. Then I play around with the handles a bit to form a lower eyelid. Now I turn the previous shape back on and adjust the paths so the eyelids overlap properly. Alright, to animate the eyelids, I add a keyframe for the paths. Move forward a few frames and create the open eye position. To make sure these parts don't show when the eye is open, we can matte them with the eye layer. As you can see, those eyelid parts are now hidden. And the eyelid animation works perfectly. I repeat the same steps for the lower eyelids. I set the distance between the keyframes to 5 frames. Then I paste the first keyframe at frame 10 and make them easy ease. I think the animation will look smoother if the keyframe spacing is set to 3 frames. To improve the blinking animation, we can freeze the closed eye position for 3 frames before animating the eyelids opening. I change the eyelid color to brown so it looks more like an orange in the video. To create the eyebrows, I use the pen tool and draw a shape like this. I turn off the fill and set the stroke to 36. Next, let's move on to creating the eyelashes. I make them just like we draw the eyebrows. But I need to scale them down quite a bit. Let's set the size to around 8 for now. I increase their size a bit too. Make sure to name your layers so you don't get confused later. For the next eyelash, I just duplicate this layer. Press Ctrl T and rotate it a bit. Then I move the endpoints closer together to adjust the shape. To animate the lashes, I'll need to animate their path so they move along with the eyelids. I press U to show the eyelid keyframes so I can sync the lash keyframes with them. Well, it's good for now. For the opening blink, I just copied the eyelash keyframes and reversed them. As you can see, when the eyelid blinks, the eyelashes move along with it, and I make all the keyframes easy. The eyebrows should also move slightly downward when blinking. I open the position, add keyframes, and move the eyebrow down when the eyes are closed. Then I copy and reverse the keyframes. Now, to create the left eye, I have to duplicate all the existing layers, move them above, and change their color. Then I shift them to the left side. But be careful, since we animated the eyebrows position, Simply moving the layers could mess things up. To move everything properly, it's best to parent all layers to a null using motion tools first, then just move the null so none of the keyframes break. Now to flip the lashes, just open scale, unlink the chain icon and set the X value to -100. As you can see, it flips the lashes, and now we can place them where they need to be. Once we're done, we can delete the previous null. And to keep everything organized and movable, I parent all layers to a new null. Then I scale it up a bit too. To design the mouth, I use a rectangle. I set the stroke to 0 and change the fill color to brown. Then within the same layer, I draw 2 more shapes for the teeth. I round the corners and set the color to white. Next, I duplicate it and move it a little to the side. For the tongue, I draw another rectangle. Round its corner and make it pink. To make only part of the mouth visible, I draw another shape to act as a mask. And I set the mouth layer to alpha matte that shape. As you can see, only the masked part is now visible, and I named that layer mask. To add a little extra cuteness, let's create some small facial features like freckles. I draw a brown circle. Duplicate it, make the copy smaller, then duplicate it again. I group all 3 shapes together, then duplicate the group and move them to the other side of the face. To mirror them, I flip the X scale using the same method as before. Then I rename the group. Now that the face design is complete, let's go back to the main comp where the orange video is. I bring the face comp into this main comp and resize it to fit the orange. Next, isolate the video or footage and use the tracker panel to click on track camera. The analysis may take a while. Just make sure your footage matches the composition settings, like frame rate and resolution. Otherwise, it could cause problems. That's why it's better to create your composition directly from the footage, just like we did at the beginning. Once the camera tracking is complete, you'll see a bunch of tracking points. When you hover over 3 points, you'll see a surface. To stick the face to the orange, I choose the surface near to the orange, right-click, and select Create Null. And now I parent the face comp to the null. Just make sure the layer is set to 3D. After making it 3D, I adjust its position manually to get the perfect alignment. Now when I play, you can see the face is perfectly stuck to the orange and moves along with it, just like it's glued on. To make our animation better, let's create a funny little story. We could animate it like this. First, the orange looks at some orange slices. Then it glances at the knife, and once it realizes what's about to happen, it starts crying. I go back into the face comp. I make the mouth a bit smaller to make it look cuter, and make its color a little more red. Now for animating the eyes, it's a good idea to add a shaky effect to the pupils. We don't even need keyframes for this. I open up the eye layer, and for the position of the pupil group, I add an expression to create the shaking effect. Now, if I play, you can see the pupil is shaking automatically. I just copy the same code and apply it to the pupil in the other eye too. Alright, let's continue with the animation. First, I'm going to move the blinking keyframes a bit forward so we can focus on animating the pupils more easily. So what I need to do is make the orange look to the left, towards the orange slices. That's why I create position keyframes for pupils. Let's try all the other layers for now, except for these two pupil layers, so the workspace is cleaner. I start this animation at frame 5. In about 5 frames, the eyes move to the side. Then after a few frames, they go back to the center. And I make the keyframes easy. A few moments later, I copy these keyframes, and again over 5 frames, make the eyes look towards the knife, as you can see here. Then again, after a short pause, I paste the keyframes in reverse so the orange looks back at the camera. And from this moment, I'll start the crying part. So I'm going to trim all the crying eye layers and create a new eye expression that shows the crying state. To create the tear look, I draw a curved line here. I give it a stroke and turn off the fill. Put the start of the layer right at the moment when the eyes snap back to the center and close. I duplicate this layer for the right eye as well. Now let's go adjust the blinking keyframes. I press U to see all the keyframes. I've already have a bunch of keyframes for blinking animation. And now I want the eyes to blink right after the pupils move. I paste the blinking keyframes right there. If you're using an older version of After Effects and you want to copy paste keyframes from multiple layers, you can use the motion tool script and the clone option. But in newer versions, you don't need that. Okay, after doing this, let's move on to creating the tears. To add tears, I draw a rectangle here. I turn off the stroke and choose a light blue fill color and rename this layer. Then I move it over the eye and use alpha matte to clip it into the eye area. To give it some motion, I add the wave warp effect to it. I set the wave width to 100 and set the speed to 0.5. If you want the movement to feel better, you can also add the turbulent displace effect. I lower the size and add the time expression to the evolution property so it keeps animating continuously. Next, I want the tear to rise over time, so I'll animate its position. In the beginning, there are no tears, but little by little they build up inside the eyes, until finally the orange starts crying. And I duplicate this tear layer for the other eye. Just make sure to select the position keyframes and move it to the other side without breaking the animation. Now let's work on animating the mouth. To animate the mouth, first let's think about how the story unfolds. I want the orange to first look at the slices, then at the knife. After realizing what's about to happen, it should start crying, open its mouth wide, and scream, so we can really sell that emotional reaction. To do that, I shade all the layers except for the mask and mouth layers to make the animation process easier. So here's the plan. About 7 frames before the eyes close, I'll set keyframes for the mouth position and the mask path. Then right when the eyes close, I move the mouth slightly up and shrink the mask, making it ready to scream. Ten frames later, I double click on the mask path to scale it up a bit. And also return the mouth position to its original state. And make all the keyframes easy. We can repeat this action again to make the scream even more dramatic. For the eyebrows, it's better if they move down slightly when the eyes close. So I copy the eyebrows keyframes and paste them at the moment the eyes close. Now this is the moment when the tears should start flowing from the eyes. So I draw a new shape for the tears and place it below the eye layers. I add the wave warp effect to it. Set the height to 15 and the width to 130 and adjust the direction downward. Then I duplicate the tear and move the second one to the right. Let's see the results so far and see how it looks. Looks like the tears need to go further down. So I go into the face count, increase its height to 1400 and extend the tears downwards. As you can see, the tear shapes now extend nicely to the bottom. Now I have to mask the tears so they fit into the scene properly. Alright, the tear animation is now working correctly. To make the animation more engaging, when the eyes move left and right, the whole face should move a little too. To do that, I parent all the face elements to the same null. So when the eyes look left, I slightly move the null to the left as well. You'll notice it makes the animation feel more dynamic, like the orange is really turning its head. I repeat the same for other eye movements, adjusting the face movement to match the eye direction. To add more appeal, when the orange looks at the knife, I want a glowing highlight to travel across the blade to show how sharp it is. This part is simple. I draw a white circle, then add a pucker and bloat modifier from the Add menu. I set the amount to -90. When the orange turns to look at the knife, I move this glow layer into place. It should travel across the blade over about 15 frames and stop at the corner of the blade. For extra detail, I animate the scale and rotation as well. At the end of the animation, I increase the scale a bit, then set it to 0 after 5 frames. Also, I add a slight rotation and keyframe it to finish around the same time. You can raise the position slightly at the end too. No need to track this glow. Manual keyframes work fine if you want precise control. If needed, you can use row across time for the position keyframes so it doesn't pause at the end. Then I add a glow effect, increase the radius, and duplicate the glow effect to intensify the shine. As you can see, the glow appears behind the orange. To fix that, I create a shape layer. Go into the face layer and copy the path from the mask we used for the outline. Then I paste that path into the new shape layer after converting it to a Bezier path. I make the shape layer 3D and parent it to the same node that controls the orange movement. I might scale it up slightly to match the orange size. Let's rename this layer. And the track matte section, set it to be masked by the top layer. Make sure it's set to invert. If it looks right, just nudge the mask slightly to adjust the edges. The more precise you are, the better your animation will look. Now I finalize the animation, and to make the whole thing more lively and fun, I've added a few sound effects. I used a pop sound for the blinking, a sword sound for the knife glow, and a crying sound effect to really sell the emotion. You can do the same, just place the sound effects in the right spots and enjoy your animation. If you like to use my project files and sound effects, I'll leave the download link in the video description. Thanks for watching till the end.